Hey guys, and welcome to Full Shed Games. I'm Andrew, also known as the Lich Lord, and tonight I'm going to be discussing one of my favorite fantasy series, which is The Wheel of Time, written by Robert Jordan. The series was originally started by Robert Jordan in 1990, so the series itself has been going on for a pretty long time now, and I have to say that is definitely one of my favorites, if not quite my favorite altogether. I have to say that it's probably tied with The Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. But I don't know, there are times when I like it more, there are times when I like it less. I guess it all depends on the mood I'm in. But anyways, there are 14 books in the series, so it is a sprawling epic. It's by far the biggest series, as far as length of books I have ever read. It's the longest series that I know of. There are probably longer series out there, but it's definitely the longest continuing series that I know of and that I have definitely read. But anyways, just a note on this video is that, number one, I'm probably going to mess up some of the pronunciations of some of the names. I am an avid fan of this series, and I've always really enjoyed the books a lot, and as I said, it's like my favorite series, but there's just some names in this series that I've never quite gotten a full hold on how they're supposed to be pronounced. So forgive me for that if I mess some of them up. I'm pretty sure I have them for the most part right, but I'm sure there's going to be like one or two that I mess up. And number two, as I said, there are 14 books, so there may or may not be something that I miss, and if I miss something in this video, then I also apologize for that. But I'll do my best to hopefully not, miss some important aspects. And also, third note on this video is I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler free as I possibly can. There might be minor spoilers, but nothing that's going to ruin the experience for you if you're just starting out. And also, this is the first part in a two-part series. Two videos that I'm going to be doing for this. This one's just going to be an overview of the entire series, and the second video is going to be an in-depth review of the 14th and final book, Memory of Light, which I thought was just awesome. It really capped off the series for me. I know there are some people out there who didn't like it. I think the majority of the people who have read the entire series and have and our fans liked it, but I know there's kind of a smaller minority of people out there that didn't like it so much, and most of them actually had pretty good reasons. But anyways, I'll get into that a little bit later, and hopefully you'll watch that video too. But anyways, I'll start with just a general look at the books. As I said, there are 14, so this might take a little bit to get through all of them, but I'm going to show all the covers and kind of show all the covers and all the different names, just because I don't know how many times I've been, asked by people, oh, I really want, I saw these books by Robert Jordan and they look really good, but I just didn't know where to start. So I was like, well, okay, in this video I'll show you where to start and, the correct chronology for the books. The first one is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, and I have a very old copy of this book. Actually had a different copy. I bought a newer copy because this one was just getting worn out. I think I probably read this one. I read this one twice because the first book is very kind of it's a self-contained book. So if you don't feel like reading 14 books in a series, you could just read the first one. I mean, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I wouldn't suggest doing that because I really like the entire series. But if you don't want to write 14 books, you could always just read the first one. But as I said, I have another copy of this I actually lent to a friend a while ago, and that's kind of the normal artwork that's normally on the cover. But anyways, it's the first one, The Eye of the World, that was published in 1990, Robert Jordan. These are all published by Tor Books, also. Second one is The Great Hunt. Front and back. Also, these are all published by Tor Books. So, third book is The Dragon Reborn. Fourth book is The Shadow Rising. And I like all the. There are a few people out there that I've talked to that really don't like the cover arts in these books, but I've always really liked them. I always thought it was pretty good artwork. So, the fifth book is Fires of Heaven. Sixth, Lord of Chaos. 7, Halfway, Crown of Swords. 8, The Path of Daggers, which I don't know, I'd say first 6 books, they kind of change in tone around this book. I'd say it changes tone more with the 7th book, A Crown of Swords. The first 6 are kind of, kind of swashbuckling type of adventure stories, where the rest of the series, not necessarily the rest of the series, but from probably about 7 to, I'd say, like, 7 through 13, they kind of take more of kind of like a political, kind of like, Game of Houses, different political houses fighting against each other for control of different areas. What's leading up to what the main plot in the story is. So they kind of take a little bit of a change there, but I still really enjoy them. I know there's some people who say that they didn't enjoy the second half of the series as much as they enjoyed the first half, but I like them pretty much equally. They are a little bit slower to read, but if you like political intrigue, things like that, then the second half is also good. The 8th book, Winter's Heart, ninth book. 10th book, Crossroads of Twilight. 11th book is Knife of Dreams. 12th book, which is actually co-written, I shouldn't say co-written, but is written by Brandon Sanderson. In 2007, Robert Jordan sadly died from a rare blood disease. And Brandon Sanderson, who is also a very good writer, took over the role of author for these books. And, when Robert Jordan died, I was kind of crushed. I mean, I didn't think I was on, like, the 12th book, and, or the 11th book, I'm sorry, and, I didn't think there was going to be an end, because, I mean, there's 11 books, the writer spent his entire life writing these books, and, it'd be very difficult for any writer, no matter how talented they might be, to come in and just take over and finish the last 3 books of the series. But I think he did a great job. Brandon Sanderson also wrote several other books. He wrote the Mistborn trilogy, Elantris, Warbreaker, and he's working on his own kind of like epic saga right now, which is the Stormlight Archives. The first book is The Way of Kings, which is the very good books. So when I heard that it was going to be him, I was optimistic, but I mean, I wasn't sure. I mean, just with the scale of these books, I didn't think that it was possible for it to be finished. But they did a great job. Brandon Sanderson did a wonderful job finishing the last 3 up. And as I'll continue with the books, but the 12th one is The Gathering Storm. I have the last 2. I actually have them in hardcover. 13th book is Towers of Midnight, and the 14th book is A Memory of Light, the epic conclusion, that I will be talking about in a separate video shortly, that will be coming up soon. But I'll tell you the basic story of this saga, which is basically in the Third Age, which these books take place in what is known as the Fourth Age. But in the Third Age, which is called the Age of Legends, there were lots. It was a sprawling, not empire, but the world was peaceful. There was all peace. Technology was sprawling. There's a lot of technology. The world was generally good. Very little evil done to people. People worked together to basically make the world a better place. There is a group of people who can channel magic. I guess you can call magic in this series. Who are called Aes Sedai, and they channel what is called the One Power. The One Power is what turns the Wheel of Time, which is basically kind of what the whole story is about. The Wheel of Time is turning. People are the threads that are on the wheel, and basically the wheel turns the pattern of the age. And yeah, but anyways, the Aes Sedai are able to channel magic. There's the male half of the One Power, which is Saidin, and there's the female half, which is Saidar. And, in the Age of the Legends, they were able to work together to use this, this power for good, and basically to make the world a better place, and there's peace, and everything's wonderful in the Age of Legends. But then one day, the Aes Sedai bore a hole into kind of a prison, kind of, not necessarily a prison, but into kind of a dimension where the Dark One, who's also known as Shaitan, was being kept kind of held prisoner. He wasn't loose in the world, but they bored into that, and he was let loose, and there's a great war, and basically the dragon, not a dragon, but it's actually a title for a human, for a man who was loose there in Talamon, eventually imprisoned the Dark One again, and basically saving the Earth, saving reality as it was known from evil taking over, and basically kind of stops what happened. However, before the Dark One's prison could be completely sealed, he had a counterstroke in which he tainted the male half of the One Power, which basically drove all the male channelers insane and completely destroyed the world, completely destroyed everything. So the age is shattered, the world is shattered, everything's in ruin. I mean, it's basically apocalypse. Imagine if, people who can basically channel the power of an atom bomb, and there are hundreds of them throughout the world, all of a sudden went insane and just started killing everybody and destroying everything they could see. That's basically what happened. However, the female channelers didn't lose their power. It wasn't their side. Their side of the One Power was not tainted. But anyways, about 1,000 years after that, the world is rebuilt to a certain extent. It's a very feudal society. One of the things I always really liked about this series was that it's not necessarily a Western European fantasy. There's also a lot of mixes from different, cultures, I guess, that are in the real world. Like, there's a lot of Eastern culture. There's even a lot of Indian culture and things like that, which I thought was really interesting. In fact, the whole kind of theme, like the Wheel of Time, is kind of based on reincarnation and it's kind of based on Taoism a little bit too. But I thought that was kind of interesting that a lot of the kingdoms kind of have very Asian themes. I'm not saying that the whole, not the whole kingdom, that the whole world itself is, Asian. There's also a lot of other kind of Western European-ish nations also, but it's very much its own thing. It's not like in A Song of Ice and Fire where Westeros is basically England, only more fantastic. It's a fantasy, but it's kind of it's created its own thing. Let's put it that way. But anyways, it starts. You're about 1,000 years later in a small town known as the Two Rivers, where there's a young man and his two friends who are living there. They're just farmers, kind of live I wouldn't say sedentary, but just farmers, just kind of simple folk. And the main character is Rand al'Thor, who eventually, this might be a minor spoiler. Eventually, he's basically the reincarnation of Lews Therin Telamon. So he is the Dragon Reborn, which is, a lot of the titles of the books you can see, the Dragon Reborn and so forth. He is the Dragon Reborn. His two friends too, Matrim Kuthan and Perrin Ibarra, are also, kind of twisted up into this, what is going to be happening. Basically, the prison the Dark One is held in is starting to crumble. The seals that keep him in place are slowly deteriorating, and basically it's the end of the world is eventually going to be happening, which in this series is called Tarmon-Ghadan. Basically, the pattern itself is going to be destroyed. Reality as we know it is either going to be completely eradicated or completely remade in the vision of the Dark One, which wouldn't be so good. Basically, everybody would be slaves, or everybody would be... It'd be terribly twisted reality. Let's put it that way. And I guess the basic overall theme, I guess you could call it a theme, would be, imagine waking up one morning and realizing that you had to save the world. And, that's one of the main things with Rand, especially, is that, it's not all, it doesn't always go well for him. There's a lot of things that go poorly throughout the story. There's a lot of times where, as the reader, you're like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Why would you ever do that? And that's not just with him. That's a lot of the characters in the story where you're just thinking to yourself, like, why did they make that decision? But I think that's one of the things I really liked about it, because, I mean, it wasn't just like... It's very much about the characters as well as the main plot. I know in a lot of fantasy, the plot really drives forward the stories, and it's not always about characters so much. It's more about what's happening. Lord of the Rings, for instance. It's very much about, Frodo going from point A, the Shire, to point Z, Mordor. Obviously, there's a lot of character there too, but it's more plot driven. It's more about what's going on in the world that gets things from this point to that point. Where in the Wheel of Time, it's very much a mix. There's this overall plot where it's eventually getting there, eventually getting to the point where the last battle is going to be happening. But at the same time, it's very much based on how the characters react to different situations they've been in. So different things that have happened throughout the story really affect the outcome of the next book and so forth. What the characters do drastically changes what happens in maybe not even just the next book, but maybe even the third book after the one that you just read, which I thought that was really cool. And there's a lot of other fantasy stories like that too. For instance, Song of Ice and Fire is almost completely character driven. Sometimes it's hard to even recognize what the overall plot is. Obviously you have like the White Walkers, and that's kind of what I would say is the overall plot in that, the coming of winter and things. But that's mostly a character-driven fantasy. There's a plot. I'm not trying to say there's no plot. I'm just saying it's more based on how the characters interact with each other and interact with the world. But yeah, that's one of the really nice things about Wheel of Time is it's very mixed. It's almost half and half. It's half plot-driven, half character-driven. So you have characters driving a lot of the story, and you have also, the main plot, the main goal of the story is also, affects the story a lot. So I thought that's really cool. Another thing I always thought was really interesting about this fantasy is that women play a very large role, and they do in a lot of other fantasies too. But I know in a lot of fantasy it's very male-dominated. And as I said, the main character in this story is a male. But at the same time, you have the Aes Sedai who remained after the breaking of the world, who are all female now, and they're pretty much at the top of the political ladder in the world. They kind of, I wouldn't say directly control, but they definitely directly pull the strings that are going on throughout all the other nations. So they pretty much, they're really kind of like, I don't want to compare it to something in the real world, but it's almost something kind of like, I don't know, I don't even know if there is a way to compare it really in the real world, but they're basically in everything. They don't control directly everything, but they have the most influence throughout the world, and it's all female, which is something that's just not, you just don't see in kind of fiction in general. You just don't see it very often. I always thought that was pretty. I thought that was pretty interesting too. Also, I should probably include that the female Aes Sedai, there's what are known as the White Tower now, and they play a large part in this story. Hopefully, I didn't give too much away in this. And as I said, I'm sure there are some details that I missed. Actually, I remember one right now. There are also, with the Dark One being released, also a group of Aes Sedai who were living in the time of Legends who served the Dark One, were also sealed away with him, and they are what is called the Forsaken. There are 13 of them, and they're basically, extremely powerful channelers. And, they play a large part in the story also. And also, basically the armies of the Dark One are what's known as, I guess there's several different types. There are the Trollocs, there are Murdral, which are also known as Faceless. The Trollocs are basically like beastmen, kind of. They're half men, half beast, and they're kind of twisted creatures. And, the Murdral are kind of like, same type of thing, but they're more... they're not half beast, half men. They're more like they're kind of like twisted humans. They're very good at the martial arts, and they're very good in combat and things like that. They're very I don't know. If I were going to compare them with something else from a different fantasy book, I would say they're kind of similar to the Ring Wraiths to a certain extent. There's also Dark Hounds, Drakkar, and Grey Men, which the Grey Men I always thought were kind of cool because they're assassins, but they're basically creatures that look just like men, but they are so common. They look so common that people just overlook them, and they'll just go into the middle of a room full of people, stab somebody because nobody took any notice of them at all, and well, obviously they don't just leave. Sometimes they do, but it's basically they're kind of assassins in it. I thought that was kind of a cool aspect of the story. But I think that's it for this video. As I said, I'm sure there are some things that I missed. I tried to remember everything I could about the story. I started the first book probably like 7 or 8 years ago now. So I've read this story for a pretty long time. I reread the first book probably about 2 years ago, but I didn't reread any of the other ones. So yeah, I'm sure there's some small things, small details that I missed. But anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you like this video, and hopefully subscribe if you want to see more of these. And as I said, I'm going to be making a second video for this. It probably won't be as long, but I'm going to be doing a review of A Memory of Light that has a lot of spoilers. I'm going to basically be talking about the minute details that happen in the story. So, hope you have a good night.